This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.
This podcast is brought to you by the Global Soul Centre and the Energy Raising Foundation. Welcome, beautiful. Episode 9 of the Awakening to More podcast. This guest today is very dear to my heart. So dear that we share blood in this life. And I know we've had many lifetimes together. I want to introduce you to my big brother, or my biggest brother. I have two beautiful big brothers. This is the older one, Paul Damien Dumais. And Paulie has been absolutely pivotal to my spiritual awakening journey. He has been a guide for me, a mentor. He's been well ahead of me on this path and has been someone that I could really talk this language with, and he's helped me so much. He is a wealth of knowledge across a multitude of subjects. You could talk for hours, days, months with this man, and he seemingly knows kind of everything about everything, basically. And he has played in many different spaces. He's an aerospace engineer, super brainy dude, highly, highly intelligent. He is a Qi Gong teacher. He designs bikes and drones and has designed many different things. He works in a lot of other different spaces, and he just has so much wisdom to share. He's got a really interesting spiritual awakening journey himself, and we just have a great conversation with each other all of the time whenever we chat. And so we've recorded it to just bring you all into our life, into our family. You're part of the family, listening to the chat between Paulie and me, and we cover so many things in this. Sliding door moments, relationships, we talk about psychedelics, we talk about sibling stuff, and there's just so much in this that I know that anyone listening to this you'll get so much out of this. And it's also an opportunity for those men who have been brave enough to tune into my podcast, because actually I do know that there are some of you, people have shared with me that there are some men tuning into this podcast. This is an opportunity for you to hear from a male voice and to hear about his spiritual awakening journey. So I won't reveal too much more, just jump in. We have a long chat. And we could have gone on and on and on, but I did wrap it up. So dive in, jump in, and you might have to do this in pieces, bits and pieces, jump in at relevant times where it suits you, friends. Introducing and sharing with you one of my favourite humans in the world, my big brother, Paulie Dumais.
Oh, how excited am I? I get to have a chat with my blood, with my big bro, my big brother. I'm so excited to share this amazing creature with you, because those who already know him, and he's very well known actually around the traps, this guy. So often people know Paul, or I'm here or there, and you're Paulie Dumais' little sister. So it's really nice to be able to share you more broadly, Paulie, with the spiritual community. Thanks for taking the time to jump in and have a chat to your little sis.
We chat all the time, but now people can see what we talk about.
That's it. That's right. We should have recorded all of our chats over the years, and we could have put a compilation together. And so many times I'll be ringing you and say, okay, Paulie, what about this? And what do you think about that? And should I put my time into this? Do you think that this is something that I should look into here and there? And I'm always still looking to my big brother for his advice and his guidance. And I also wanted to start off actually just
your chai addicted big brother. Let me just
chai addicted.
I just realized as you were doing your little spiel about me, the thing that came to my head as I'm sipping the chai is I'm chai addicted.
You are chai addicted. And actually one of the things that's really nice when you come and stay is that I wake up to the smell, or if I'm staying at your place, wake up to the smell of just delicious, yummy chai in the morning, which is such a nice smell to wake up to. But one of the things I wanted to say at the start is I wanted to thank you and acknowledge you, because you were one of the probably 6 people that I shared back in 2012
Yeah.
about all the channeling.
It's funny because you talk about the closet, but you were never in the closet.
Well, not for you.
From my perspective.
You were you were inside the closet. You were part of the small number of people that I trusted. And from the start, you were in. You believed me.
Oh, I was
never
hang
doubted
on,
me.
slow down.
Oh, did you doubt me? Okay, well, maybe you didn't tell me you doubted me. So
no, it was very discerning because, I live in Byron Bay and I see a lot of people doing a lot of different things. And I've traveled the world. I've seen a lot of people doing a lot of things. So it's like, okay, what's going on here? And look, I fully believe in non-physical intelligence, and I fully believe in the ability for the human to tune in and to, speak. And I've seen it, I've lived in Bali. I've been in, ceremonies with traditional Balinese where, people start channeling the elders and the elders start telling them off, and it's hysterical. And you, and you should, and you left the village and in Indonesian, obviously, like I get their translation later and pick up bits and pieces of it. So look, I'm used to it and I know it's possible, but it's like the first thing was, who is it? Why is it? Why is it coming through? Who is it? Are they okay? Are they trustworthy? Is it some salesman that's showing you something shiny and glittery and offering you some nice little presents, and then they're actually, sucking you down into some contract to, steal your energy now or in the future? So I was very discerning, and I was like going, righto, what's going on? Who is it? Why is it? Why is this happening to Alicia? What part of Alicia has actually asked for this, consciously or unconsciously? And it really wasn't until you played me the recording of Ariella that I was just like, oh shit.
Yeah, right. So Ariella, I haven't introduced to other people, most people listening to this, but she's like an angel singing kind of guide. Well, probably because you knew I couldn't sing. So maybe that was like, how did that work?
I grew up with Alicia watching Oliver on repeat and just singing Oliver like over and over and over. And look, it's not like she can't hold a tune, but she's not, cosmically, multi-resonantly divine like Ariella.
Yeah.
And well, you are now. I mean, she's trained you. You can bust it out whenever you want. But for the first moment of hearing the recording that of her singing, and I remember I was at Starseed. I was on the deck outside the tea house. I remember exactly where I was when I heard it, and I was just like,
wow,
holy shit.
Oh, she's not bullshitting me.
Well, no, I didn't think you were bullshitting, but it was like, no, these are really powerful teachers. Like these are like, these are special beings,
That's cool. That's very cool.
And the funny thing for me is when I see you go and do all of these different workshops with Joe Dispenza and this, and you go, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, you've got access to these super high level teachers. Why aren't you just training with them? They're beyond Joe Dispenza. Like, what are you doing?
I know, you've said that to me before. You're like, just go sit in a room for like a week, and but I just still like going out and about and learning. And I probably haven't even reached that level of discipline yet where I can just do that to the degree that
and they must be hanging for that though.
They are. Actually, Goenga's asked me, like, put me in your diary. You know how you're putting all these other things and all these people in the diary. Can you just make an appointment? This is my father spirit guide. Just put me in the diary.
And what do you think the resistance is? Is it that you become weirder and you become wackier, and you'll have even, your kids will roll their eyes at you even more? Like, what is it? Because I get that. Like, to me, it's like, you get to the precipice of mysteries, and I feel myself pull back. It's like, I'm not going to be me. There's parts of me that have to disappear and go, which are constructs, and their ego, and things that have, you know, served me in this planet for whatever it is. But, you know, it's a bit scary to sort of come out of the cocoon and become the butterfly, I guess, and see what life's going to be like on the other side of that, I find.
Yeah, I think it actually just comes back to I'm still working through this piece of moving from the people pleaser and spending a lot of my life kind of outwardly focused on other people, that I've kind of got to the next bridge of where I'm much better at caring for myself and nurturing myself and making time for myself, because I was previously that over-functioner workaholic person. And that's still something that I, you know, have to work with daily. So I think it's even just to that next point of saying, yeah, you've got full permission, Alicia, just to do this. And it's not getting a massage, or it's not, you know, doing something that maybe looks like you're looking after yourself, but yeah, having that time. And I know, like, that's definitely my next thing, that spending more time in silence and more time in meditation, and I just go in and out with it. But I just feel like it just comes back to just my lack of discipline around it, I think, actually, and other things that are always just with this life, with all these kids, you know what it's like, the times that you've been with us. It's just, yeah, and just juggling all the stuff of having to still earn money to feed them and blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, how much time I've got to play in the multidimensional
Yeah, well,
space.
look, you know, Goenga, if you want her to spend more time with you, just give her the lotto numbers. Like, stop mucking around and give her the good one, so it's got enough for all of us. Like,
I know. Well, actually, they've previously
it's really simple.
No, but they've
Like, you know,
said to me before, this is interesting because people think that, oh, you know, you can get this, you can get that. But I remember I was visualizing really full on for this house. Like, I got a ticket in the home lottery, and it was literally just a street away from where I was living in Glen Iris. It's just like perfect. And I drove past that house about 3 times a day. And every time I drove past, I squealed my freaking head off. And my kids would get scared, even though they started to get used to it. And I'd drive past and I would scream and squeal, and this delight that this house was going to be ours and it was going to be great. And then I honestly was so convinced that we were going to win that house. I'd put all that manifestation, all that intention in. And then when I didn't get it, I just had this voice like saying, that is not, it's not just going to be handed to you. Like, the whole thing is all these things that you're working, all the lessons, all the things that you're going through, like, that's not it. That's not part of what you signed up for. Like, so you can keep getting your tickets and you can keep doing all your things, but it's not going to happen. So yeah, unfortunately. So let's get on to you, because this
do you think that's because they're watching you like you're a TV series, and they want it to be a bit juicy, and they want it to be a bit like, you know, it's not just guaranteed that everything's going to be a win, and that, you know, they're setting it up so that it's, you know, it has a crescendo, and oh my God, it was like it never was going to happen, and there was all the doubt, and then I just had this glimmer of hope, and then
no, because I don't think that they are really orchestrating it in that way. Like, I think it's my higher self that's really has got more of the reins, that has chosen certain things to experience here. And, you know, like, this realm's not for everything just to be handed to you and everything's easy. Like, who even gets that run here? Not one human that I know of.
no,
Maybe they get some stuff financially.
Stuff. And I was teaching this morning. I was teaching the ladies, and I was teaching
Paul's a Qi Gong teacher, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so I was teaching the ladies, and I'm just like, you know, the more you learn, the more you're given to learn, and
yeah, well, the more you don't know, I think.
yeah, well, I mean, that's it. The things that you're given to learn is you know, you get to the top of one little hill, and you see, oh, there's a whole nother mountain, and it's like that. You know, you focus on achieving something, and you achieve it, and then once you've got that, it gives you another perspective that realize, oh shit, there's so much I don't know, which is what I mean by giving you more, is showing you how much you don't know. Yeah. And, you know, making you a baby again, and then, you know, having to start and go through and learn a whole new process.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I talk about more like not so much mountains, but I just feel like it's waves. I just feel like I just get over the wave and I've just like, oh, I've got my breath. And then it's like, here comes the next one, the next one, the next one. But let's talk about you, because you are a fascinating creature. And actually I was at a party on Saturday night and some of your mates were there, and one of the guys was like, oh, this is Paul Dumais' little sister. And they're like, oh, Paul Dumais, like he's a cool cat, they said. Like he's an interesting cat, or something like that. So you have lived a really interesting life and you've made choices that have gone against the expectations of you as your little sister. If I can paint a picture growing up, like Paul is got a very unique brain. Like I've never met anyone with the brain that you have. The way that you see things, the way you're able to compute things, the level of understanding that you can have about certain things very, very quickly is just freakish. So Paul studied aerospace engineering and just has, like, you've got a little bit of like one of those crazy genius brains, I would suggest. And
you're saying I'm on the spectrum? What are you saying?
Well, look, I think we all are. I think we all are, aren't we? Certainly at somewhere along the way. But, you were kind of regarded as this, smart brainiac. I mean, you thought you knew it all pretty early, didn't you? Because you would always drive Dad crazy when he'd try and explain things to you when you were like 3. You'd be like, yeah, I know that. I got that. It's all good.
A little bit older than that, but like probably more like 6 or 7.
Yeah. But by 6 or 7, you knew everything. Yeah, of course. That makes sense.
But I mean, the weird thing is, Leash, like I remember this experience of being at the museum with Dad and Dad saying that's a da-da-da. Yep, I know, Dad. Da-da-da. Yeah, I know, Dad. But I actually did know. I don't know how I knew, but I did know. And maybe like you, I, had access to knowledge beyond where I would normally have it. Maybe I was a bit more, I was tuned in somehow or other.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because you were little, and there's a story of a particular boy who was exactly in that scenario, and it was a museum about like World War II planes or something, and he knew every detail, and it turned out that he'd had this past life, that era or whatever it was.
Yeah, so I just remember how furious Dad got and frustrated, and I reckon, if there ever was such a thing as knowing and being open to knowing, it certainly closed, in the face of one of Maxie's, We don't
want to paint, actually. We've got to be not painting Maxie like that because...
Oh, no, but I mean, actually, I would have been a very frustrating kid. Like, I would have been a very frustrating kid.
Because if I were to think about my experience of him as my dad, I can only think of one time where he was ever frustrated with me.
That time he was raised his hand and then you raised your fist that time.
Yeah, he actually the one time he got mad with me, and I don't know, I was infuriating him, and he kind of, I don't know if he indicated he was going to get so mad at me, and I literally
he came towards you and raised his hand, and you just
I put my fist and I said, "Come on!"
Oh shit. We were in Sydney.
We were in Sydney, but I was like about 18 or 19, I think.
No, you were like 13.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. I thought I was 18 or 19.
No.
Okay, that's giving me some greater appreciation of my 14-year-old daughter and how she sees things.
No, we'd driven up to Sydney. You had flown up with Mum and we'd drove up with Dad.
That's right.
And I'd done some of the driving.
Yeah.
And so I was probably 18, 19. I'd finished school.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, see, I have no sense of the time on that. But yeah, I mean, we grew up with, I think, a different dad in the sense also that he wasn't on that journey of he wasn't money focused, right? In the way that a lot of people had to do the grind and had to, make sure that they did all that. And he was, I don't know if I've mentioned this in this podcast, but he was studying to be a Franciscan monk from like 17 to 22. And so his values about money were all a bit different. But anyway, we could do a whole session on Max. We love you, Maxie. But let's get back to you. I want to know. Man. He's funny. He's got the biggest heart in the world. He's just
so funny. He's driving around that listen, Peters. Our dad had a little bingle,
Yeah, he
and
did.
he got distracted by his partner just momentarily, and he had a little bit of a rear ender, and then the car was a bit of a write-off, and so he's borrowed one from his brother-in-law, and it's a convertible 300ZX sports car. So it's like, yeah, and who knows what's going to happen next?
Oh my God. Let's hope that he just drives it nice and carefully. I'll make one correction. It's not his brother-in-law, it's his stepbrother.
Sorry, stepbrother. You're correct. You're 100%
Yeah,
correct.
stepbrother.
I've said it. I've corrected myself multiple times. I keep saying it, but yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. So I actually don't even know how it was that you got interested in spiritual things, because growing up, as far as I can remember of you, it wasn't something you were really interested in, and you went and you worked for Qantas, you got like your dream jobs really, Qantas, then Holden Special Vehicles, and you've always been a car person. Our house was full of car parts. Paul was fixing cars, working on cars. One time I heard Paul scream out, "Leash, call the fire brigade." And one of the cars was on fire at the front of the house.
Yes. You know how much that car would be worth now?
Oh God.
If I hadn't set it on fire and then sold it for like $500, that car's worth about $60,000 now. The Mazda RX-3 Coupe, super rare. Yeah, lesson for people, like if you're trying to wire up a fuel pump in the boot of a Mazda RX-3, don't temporarily do it with jumper leads.
Okay. I love that you're bringing diversity to this podcast. I'm very keen to have a male voice on here who's now able to talk cars. So, it's going to increase the viewer listener base now.
But to answer your question, Leisha, I think it was Kung Fu movies.
Okay. Well, I grew up watching a lot of martial arts movies living in the house. Steven
Bruce
Seagal,
Lee was a hero of mine, and
Claude Van Damme.
And you remember, I was like quite a fat kid. Like Bruce Lee was in my head, what the model for what I would like to be able to, be so fit, strong, but slim, and, and for good or for bad. I mean, I think I'm really took it a bit much, like his whole stretching like a cat and cracking everything. And now I just I crack everything and do all that Bruce Lee shit. So there was that stuff, but also there was all the Buddhist stuff as well. But I don't know when I started with that. The Taoism probably wasn't until the late 20s. But initially, I think it was the martial arts, and
yeah, right, okay,
and the sci-fi. Like I read a lot of sci-fi. Like sci-fi really opens up your mind to a lot of different ideas.
Yeah. But then there was the big turning point, right, where you went. Tell us where you decided you've done your aerospace. But
don't forget, we also grew up Catholic. We went to Catholic primary school, Catholic secondary school, and I had a lot of faith. Like, remember our cousin Julie, when she had cancer, we were doing the rosary and, and putting a lot of faith into it.
Yeah, but that's what cracked me open, was I'd put all that faith into it, and then she died, and I was absolutely could not believe it.
Because you remember that we did a lot of praying, and then the tumor shrunk, and we're like, it works. And then I think we just stopped praying.
Yeah.
And then of course, and then she passed. That was big for me as well, I think.
Yeah.
That was really big. I was studying.
You were closer to her, more of her age as well. And I mean, I always remember the story where you were trying to tutor Julie. You were tutoring Julie in maths, and you were kind of like, well, that's A and that's B, right? Because you could just get there, but she's like, you got to explain, like, how do you get from there to there? Well, it's just, and that was really,
it was a really difficult thing for me to work out, is like, what are the steps in between? Because it would just go from, A to Z, and I didn't know what B, C, D and all those things were.
Yeah.
I still have nightmares that I haven't done study for a maths exam.
Yeah, right. I think that's common. I think that's just reflective of probably some kind of something you're anxious about at that time, and then your body knows that that's what you relate it to, and so you have a dream about that.
Maybe, but I also think, maybe I do need to do more maths,
Well, I do have a year 10 nephew of yours who would very much appreciate
Well,
some
he'd be
maths tutoring.
fine at maths, wouldn't he?
He is pretty good naturally at maths, but in year 10, it's starting to like, he's saying, oh God, it's not really that easy anymore for him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So when was so leading up to that, so you've got the dream, you've gone and done the aerospace engineer degree, massive commitment, gone through that, right? Then you've gone and got your job at Qantas, and then you've got to Holden Special Vehicles. Oh my God, this is it. Like how does it get any better than that?
Well,
and then you decide to walk away.
The whole reason I wanted to do aerospace engineering was because I was into cars and race cars, and I wanted to work in Formula One. And
you thought you could drive race cars, because those parents who are listening to this brother of mine who loves me dearly put my life at risk on the regular, because he would drive like he was driving a race car with his little sister down a street, right up to a parked car, watch his leash, drive right up and then pull out and then come back in the street and then in, and you'd come back in and come in.
I was a psycho.
Oh my God.
I just, like, if I saw me driving now, I would chase myself, I would drag myself out of the car, and I would shake myself like a rag doll.
And what about your little sister who's in the car? And these were the times that you actually had a license. But
I've got burnt in my memory, like
cars
others on the side street of Karma Avenue, with me going as fast as you possibly. Remember, they put like a chicane in, and we just like, we've got our own personal chicane here.
Oh my gosh!
And we just used to try and hit it from curb to curb as fast as we. And this woman just goes,
yeah, and she's probably got her little kids out in the street. I said stealing cars before. I didn't mean you actually stole cars, but driving your parents' cars. Without
well, yeah, but yeah, I mean, that was a crazy time. Like, I would drive all my friends out and I wouldn't drink, and that car of mine, the sedan, the RX3, which DJ has in the shed, right, like, it was so ridiculously fast. It would throw flames 3 foot out the exhaust on down changes, and it set off every alarm in Toorak.
I remember alarms going off. Yes.
What a psycho.
What a psycho. What was going on, Paulie?
I don't know. I just think...
Shout out to DJ. There is another sibling, the middle in between us, who looks also like me. Because whenever people hear that I'm a quarter Indonesian, they're like, no, you're not. And I always pull out your photo and I go, look, this is my full brother. He got it. He got the Indonesian.
But people think we look alike. They pick me as your sister, a brother.
As your
and
sister. Okay.
That's either way, and DJ. And I'm just like... How do they? I don't even. Yeah, okay, all right. So yeah, look, I think there was parts of me that were always interested in mystery, but there was definitely a big open. I think when I started to have a bit of acid, like in my 20s, I had a few moments like going out to festivals like Earthcore and having some acid and dancing and just getting right into dancing and just listening to music and just going to another level. Like finding that I could dance all night long and just going, wow, what's going on? What's with this body? It just moves, can't stop moving. Like finding this bubbling energy in my body. There was that, and having experiences out in the bush and being a bit high. So those sort of things started to crack me open a little bit.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the same time as that, that's when I was working at Holden. So even though I was working through Holden Special Vehicles, I was contracting through them. I was actually working at Holden. I wasn't working on the special vehicles. I was working on pretty boring stuff.
Okay. Well, I just remember you saying to me something about car doors. And do you remember? Do you remember the line you said to me? Because you quit your job, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing that?
Yeah. Well, I remember that at the time I was, working at Holden. And I sort of was a bit just off the joint. I was like, they're working on 50-year-old technology. They're importing most of their components from, America and Europe, and then reworking them to fit in this car. There were so many smart people working there. Like, they could have been designing stuff from scratch instead of trying to redesign stuff to fit into another car and then fixing all the problems that was coming with these badly designed things. They could have just started from scratch.
Yeah.
And so I was frustrated there. and I was working on the current product, not future products. And so I decided that I wanted to work on something different, and I thought I'd work on bikes. I was into riding bikes. I rode around a lot. I rode push bikes and mountain bikes, and I thought, look, they're clean, they're, you know, green. And so I thought, I want to just start doing bikes. I'm going to take a month off, and I'm going to look at what it would take to start a business to design bikes. And started drawing some sketches and all that sort of stuff. And then in that month off, so this is like 1998.
Yeah.
So I'm 27.
Yeah.
And guys I'd worked with at Qantas, Mark and Dave, they gave me a birthday present of a gift voucher. And I went and bought a couple of books, and one of them was Fritjof Capra's Web of Life, which is like a deep ecology book all about what is life, what's the definition of life, what is the self-organizing principle, what is autopoiesis. So I read all that book. I'd read Fritjof Capra before, the Dancing Willie Masters, I think it was.
I've not read either of those. You've not recommended.
No, it's something else. I mean, it's all that East meets West. It was the early, you know, science meets Eastern philosophy type stuff.
Right.
I think Dancing Willie Masters was someone else, but Fritjof Capra wrote a very famous, you know, something along those lines. And anyway, so I read that book, and the other book was Celestine Prophecies.
Oh yeah.
And I read that book, and the first insight, you know, there was 9 insights. So the first insight was see the whole evolution of the earth and humanity in the blink of an eye. And that book I just read had given me that. I literally could see how we'd come from just atoms and molecules in a star, being born in a star, to being spread out, to forming planets, to those planets forming more complex molecules, to forming amoeba, to, you know, becoming multicellular organisms and becoming humans. I could see the evolution.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, what's the next insight? And I think the next one might have been like seeing the energy in nature. And in the book, the guy was in Costa Rica, super green, and it was like some beautiful, beautiful place. So I was like, oh, Byron Bay, you know, and I'd been to Byron a few times. I had a few friends there. So I just jumped in the Lancer and drove to Byron, and I just drove the whole way looking at the trees and looking at the trees and looking at the trees. I stopped at night and slept a few hours in the car, and then got up in the morning and then finished the drive looking at the trees. And by the time I got there, I could see this glow around the trees. And I was like, oh, okay, I've got the next one.
I just did a podcast, like my last podcast was Spiritual Awakening, and this sounds like that first step where you have kind of, you're starting your connection and things get brighter and you start to see things differently. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think already at that time, I was going to that Dow Centre in Caulfield.
Yes, I remember.
With Peter Smith, with Benny Medhurst. And
yes.
So I'd started investigating Taoism. By that time, I'd already read a heap about Buddhism. You know, I'd done a heap of different martial arts by then. And
so we've got similarities. Like you're there doing your aerospace engineering, right? You're doing those jobs, but then you're dipping in and out in that. I'm in the law. I'm in the law firm doing the law thing, but then I'm studying all the things on the sides, right?
Reading about angels.
Yeah.
But also, Leisha, remember the silver mind method that Mum and Dad took us
I reckon that was actually fundamental in so much. Like how switched on are our parents? I don't know how old you were, but I was like 15 when they
I was at uni.
Yeah.
I think I was 18, so that'd make sense because I'm 5 years older.
Well, yeah.
We didn't go to the same one.
No. Well, maybe
but
you
I
went
remember
first.
being there and just like, you know, learning this method of getting down into a deep meditation. And, you know, initially it would take an hour and then, and they'd talk you down. It was like a hypnosis. And then eventually it would be 3, 2, 1. And then you're in alpha.
Yeah.
And I remember doing stuff like where we'd go for a journey into an orange. And you just like go on this visualization tour and imagine what you're seeing, and just like in the head diving in and going into it. And then I did the advanced course in healing as well, and learned a whole lot of methods there, which some of which I've kept for life. And you know, I mean, it was interesting. Remember, and you'd set up this room. I never visited it really, but
Yeah.
you'd
Oh,
set up
yeah.
a
We
room
had,
down below, and
yes.
then you go down the elevator.
I still go in there quite a bit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But they were all really useful tools, and they were useful doing engineering. Like,
Yeah.
they were useful to like put yourself in a mode to study, and they were
Yeah.
useful to gain access as well to like, because that was one of the things you could set up your office in your personal space deep within a relaxed mind, and then you could bring in people, you know, whether it was your guides
Yeah.
or
Albert Einstein, whoever you wanted. I remember having one particular exam, like a year 12 exam, where I just was in alpha. And I feel like I just sat down and the exam, I just felt like 5 minutes passed and 2 hours had passed and the exam was done. And that was crazy. The other thing that blew my mind in that course was the body scanning. Did you do that? Where you body scan someone and everyone was so accurate on diagnosing. Like to think that everyone can just kind of has got actually those capacities for medical intuition in that way was at very, very basic level. It's astounding.
Also, the thing I remember the most was like I had a really runny nose doing it, as I did a lot being a kid, and still like it's something that I really need to get beyond, because that runny nose allergy type thing that I get, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
It's debilitating for me as a teacher. Like I feel like I'm a hoax because I can't sort out this thing that I've had since I was a kid. You know, that I can't, you know, be in this place of vibrant health. Like I can put on a t-shirt that's a bit musty, that's been in the wardrobe too long, and then get a whiff of mold or something and bugger all, and it's psychosomatic.
But we've got this hypersensitivity, both of us, to like dust and what do you call it? I don't know if are you like that with chemical? I just
I have to hold my breath walking down
chemicals.
like
you go into the aisle in the supermarket.
Yeah, I have to hold my breath. I can't walk down that aisle without you know, getting affected.
Same.
Perfumes, if someone wears strong perfume.
So bad. Or I hug someone and then I literally have to come straight home and have a shower and factor that into my day.
But I mean, hypersensitivity, it's handy. But it's also like debilitating. I'd like, you know, to better be able to shield myself from that.
Yeah. I know what you mean about that, or that hope, because I've just lately been just waking up with very puffy eyes and not looking my normal vibranty self. And I'm like, God, I'm supposed to be this energetic, you know, this work teaching energy. What? Come on. Like, I want to be looking like totally pumping all the time. So, but you know, we're also, that's the whole thing. We've got to also accept our human self. And because we've both got very sensitive systems, it has led us to be pretty healthy humans, right? Like we've got to both of us have got to be so
I'm not
careful
drinking this month
what we eat and
like,
drink.
I'm having sober October, but
I haven't drunk.
I can't have more than 2 beers, or else I'll wake up with a runny nose the next morning.
No, but I couldn't even have that. I mean, I stopped drinking when I had Darcy, which I was 30. I'm now 46, almost 47. I've had about 6 drinks, I reckon, in that time because of that reason. My body just says no. You know.
Having said that, every blue moon I get thirsty and I can drink.
Yeah.
And then but it's not very often. But then sometimes
and you normally end up just missing the party and just like crawling into a bed.
Yeah. That was sad. Anyway, I remember, look back to that runny nose story, was because Mum, being the darling that she is, said, look,
I remember you used to do these things, cloths and things over your head. And
well, she took me to Lygon Street because we're doing the course in Carlton, and we went to this place called Cafe Nyonya, and that was my first experience of a curry laksa, which is now probably my favorite dish.
Yeah, you were curry laksa crazy.
Yeah, and so that I went looking for that cafe recently and I couldn't find it. I don't think it's there. Probably didn't survive COVID. But yeah, that was my first curry laksa, and I just remember thinking, what a lovely thing of my mum to give me this hot broth because it helped me with this runny nose, and what a, you know, sweet thing.
She's a sweet thing. Like we don't even fully comprehend. I think we're very conscious of it, but like what we chose there in that parent of ours is just like beyond. She's next level.
She is
phenomenal.
She is. I was trying to. I was like, Marta and I were driving today, and we saw this lady, you know, grey hair, mowing the lawn, and I'm like, good on you, love, going. I'm like Marta, like old school Aussie, you know, probably grew up on a farm. When I drove back, I realised she didn't have shoes on, and I'm like, oh no, maybe she's just crazy. But I was like, you know, the Aussie women that grew up on farms, like, Mum, they're so strong. And
There is definitely something like her growing up on that farm that there's not much that really kind of rocks her
at getting up at dawn and milking the cow, you know, to get milk for all the 4 other siblings and whatnot. And Marta's like, yeah, it's hard for her to see it because, you know, Mum's had, you know, the cancer for most of the time Marta's known her.
Yeah.
I think the whole time.
Yeah, right.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Because remember, Marta came. It's not the whole time I've been with Marta, but that first time Marta came down to meet Mum, and Mum was in hospital for that Christmas.
Yeah, right.
Remember we were having Christmas at your house?
Yeah.
So for Marta, she hasn't seen strong Murray.
She hasn't seen. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I'm just like, Marta, just put your hand in her hand next time you see her. Like you'll feel like you've got a baby's hand. She's got such big, strong hands, you know?
Yeah,
from
true.
getting up and working and milking cows and, you know.
Yeah.
So strong.
It's amazing. So I want to take you back to that decision you made to leave the job.
So I read the 2 books.
I'll tell you what you said to me. I said, why are you doing that? And you said, I've got more love to give the world than doing something with car doors. I'm moving to Byron.
Did I say I'm moving to Byron?
Yeah.
I remember that. So I did that trip to Byron, you know, and instead of the whole idea of a vehicle that was efficient and clean and in harmony with nature, this push bike, that metaphor became me, having read those books and realizing actually I'm not that clean. I'm not that healthy, you know. And I've got this body, I've got this mind, I've got this spirit, and how much could I enhance them? You know, what could I do for that? So
it'd be good if we could have some before and afters for those people listening who maybe have struggled with weight or, you know, not keeping themselves fit. Like the before and after of you is pretty impressive.
Well, yeah, when I was working at Qantas, I think I was 91 kilos at my top.
Right.
And I was 71 last week. I'm back up to about 73.
Yeah, but also you're all cut and ripped
today
and tough and what's the word? Muscled and.
Yeah, well, in that time, so when I went to Byron for that month, you know, I kept looking through the insights. I learned about human auras. I went and got my aura photo taken.
Yeah.
I had an astrology reading and I came back to Melbourne with the intention that I was going to leave Holden.
Yeah.
And then I thought, right, I'm going to work through to the end of the year. It was like September. And I'll save some money and that will give me the start to travel and keep on this exploration of myself.
Yeah.
And I got back on the Monday. By the Thursday, I was sitting on the grass having lunch and I was just staring at a blade of grass. And then I just heard this voice in my head. So you're leaving this job. And I'm like, yep, I'm leaving this job, but you're still here. Yep, I'm still here. Okay, so why are you still here? Well, I'm going to get the money to work to the end of the year. So then I've got some money to go traveling. Oh, so you're still here because of money. And I was like, oh. And it's just this like click, light went off. And I was like, I'm here. I don't want to be here. Money is what's keeping me here.
Yeah.
And I just, this rebellion occurred. And I just made the decision to quit on the spot.
That's awesome. It's not a rebellion though, was it? It was actually an inner is actually listening to the inner voice, because people hear these voices all the time, but a lot of people just don't have the guts
I wasn't rebelling to that
them.
voice. I was rebelling to
the system and to the what you're supposed to do and keep the job and do all the sensible things.
So it was wild because it was such a strong moment. And it's one of those like, you know, conversation with God type things, whether it was this future me that went back and was just telling me, you know, wake up, fella.
Yeah.
And it was literally like some big version of me grabbed me by the back of the shirt and picked me up and walked me into my manager's office.
Wow.
And I was just like watching myself do it, going, am I really doing this? And I felt so alive, like, so this is actually happening. And then I said, look, I'm going to quit.
Wow.
And so they said, right, oh, well, you've got to give 2 weeks notice. You've got to work for another 2 weeks. I said, okay, cool. I was like, shit, wow.
Wow. Is it that easy? Was it that thing where you kind of build it all and there's like, oh, wow, like I can do that. Oh, no one's going to like put a stop to this, and I can just like, it's possible. I can just make these choices.
But then there was this thing of like, you know, I'd always loved Holden. Like, you know, when I was watching Bathurst, I would always be going for Holden over Ford. I was always into Peter Brock. And so there was this love of Holden, and there was this disappointment getting this job there and then being disappointed with it. And I ended up going around and talking to all these different managers. And like, I was right into looking at electric cars. Before Tesla came about, there was a company called AC Propulsion that built this little yellow sports car called the T0 that was dragging off all these Lamborghinis.
Right.
And Tesla bought that company. They ended up having to remake all the tech, but that was the initial seed of what became Tesla. Right. So I was following all of that stuff, and I went and saw Laurie Spark, who was like the head of future projects at Holden. I'm like, listen, you've got to be making an electric car. And he's like, there's no market for it. And I'm like, that's what marketing's for. Like,
you're like your dad, always like ahead of the game, right? Like, it's like future.
Yeah, but it was really interesting. I went around, I spoke to a few managers. I ended up speaking to the head of engineering, Tony Hyde, and I said, look, you've got all these people here with a heap of skill that aren't getting used. Like, you could be designing a concept car virtually that people could do after work, you know, and give them access to use some of the, you know, the CAD equipment, because back then to have a CAD computer and software, it was like a $50,000 deal.
Yeah, right.
You know? But every night at 5 o'clock, everyone walked out the door and so there's all this equipment sitting there.
Yeah. And
there were all these people that were actually super intelligent, super creative, that could do other jobs than what they were doing. I was one of them, you know. And I was like, you know, you could create a design competition that got all these people to work collaboratively. This is the beginning of internet and online and all that stuff. Yeah. Where they could come together and create a project and vote on it together and design something virtually. And if it's good, the company could produce it. Yeah. And this could become your way for HR to work out who's actually more skilled in another role, like who's got more juice than we're extracting. And, you know, he turned around and said, well, why don't you stay and do it? You know, it's kind of wild. Like, I could have just stayed there. That could have been another path. I could have stayed there, and instead of doing
all these sliding door moments, right?
Yeah, this boring job, I suddenly would have been doing this job, which was like way up in steering the future of the company.
Yeah, right.
But and I went,
actually, did you think for a moment there?
No, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I'm leaving because the vehicle wasn't Holden, the vehicle was me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't about a different career. It wasn't about more money. It wasn't about that. It was like, what are the aspects of me? How much room for improvement are there?
Yeah. And you weren't living your most healthy version, were you? Like, you were the 91 kilos, like you weren't.
Yeah, I was probably a bit less by that time at Holden. That was more when I was at Qantas, you know, but this is a year later. Remember, I'd got really sick. Remember, I had got alopecia when I was working at Qantas, and
you did.
I got those big chunks of hair falling out.
Stressed out of your brain. That was probably a big part of the wake up.
I wasn't stressed.
No, but you maybe not consciously, but the alopecia, that's got to be the body saying it's stressed, you know?
Look, for me, looking back at it, like, it was great. Mum, of course, came to the rescue, and Mum's like, why don't you go and see Fiona Liang and get acupuncture? Oh, yeah. Because I went to Western doctors, and the Western doctors were like, okay, you've got alopecia areata. And I'm like, okay. And so, you know, how bad's it going to get? She goes, well, if you lose all the hair on your head, that's alopecia totalis. And then if you lose all the hair on top, all your body, that's alopecia universalis. And I was like,
I don't want any
which
of that.
one have I got? And they're like, well, we only name it once it's happened. We can't tell you how bad it's going to get. And they're like, and what's the therapy? Oh, we haven't really got anything. I was just like, you guys are useless. And that was one of the first moments when I realized that there were serious limitations
for the Western medicine system, which
And
I know you and I have had endless conversations about.
Yes. So I went and saw Fiona Liang, who barely spoke any English, and she just said, stick out your tongue. How's your bowel movement? And she was always like, you've got to stay calm. Don't go out. So, because I was going out every night. I mean, I wasn't drinking, but I'd be out. Like I had one of those Palm Pilots before there were smartphones.
Remember those people?
And I'd have like all these different, like half an hour here, half an hour there, and I'd be going to this club, and then I'm meeting this person over at this bar, and then I'd be going here, and then I'd be going there. I had so many friends, and I'd just be like bouncing around and doing all these different things, and see this gig and that gig, and busy. And she's like, oh, you got to calm down, calm down. And so within 6 weeks of getting acupuncture with her, I'd broken up with Penny, quit my job at Holden, quit my job at Qantas, got the job at Holden, 50% more pay, and took 4 weeks off, and then got, cheap tickets through Qantas staff travel, and went to America and spent a month there and hung out with Dev and Sammy and Tom.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, all those characters. So, and my hair started growing back and all that sort of thing, but then it started to go again at Holden. So it was really obvious for me that environment wasn't healthy for me.
Yeah. You had to choose you ultimately over that path, and what, the expectations of, and they're probably at the time, was that hard? Like, were there people saying, I mean, I know even as your little sister, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing?
DJ wanted to pick me up and shake me. Remember,
DJ?
He was just like,
that wasn't the only time. That's not the only time he's wanted to pick you up and shake you.
I know, but for him, like me having a job where I get to take a car out and fang it around the high-speed track at Lang Lang.
Yeah, you don't give up that.
And, he's like, what, that's your job? You get to go and do 200 kilometers an hour in a car because you're listening to the leak of the sound in a sunroof. Like, and I'll be like, but it's not enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to move on to your Vipassana journeys as well, because like, we can talk for hours, right?
Yeah, but just hang on, I'll get there, all right? Because we're nearly there, all right? We're in September of 98.
September of 98, yes.
Yeah. So I quit, I leave, and I just start, doing my own thing, and it's, comes into 99, I go and do Vipassana.
Okay. Yeah.
And I, that happened backwardly. Someone invited me to do it. I'd never heard of it. I got my first ever tarot reading. I saw the hermit card and I went, oh, I am going to do that Vipassana. So I went up there.
You're following all the signs.
Yeah. Did that Vipassana. And I think it must have been like January 99. Had a really amazing experience there. Like, all the things they tell you, that are possible. Like, I had the full dissolution. I've never had it really since. Right. But I had the full dissolution, and as
in like dissolution of where you lose your whole body. That or
yeah. I was like, oh, this is this thing they're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm just existing in nothingness.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Don't grasp it.
No clinging, no craving.
So that was a big experience for me. And
so for people who don't know what Vipassana is, it's 10 days silence and very basic, like not much food, just getting up early, meditating all day, have a bit of break, no exercise, no reading, no writing, no music, no stimulus.
You can walk. You're
not even allowed to have a hairdryer. I remember I was like, no noise.
Well, I knew nothing about it. I knew it was a silent retreat, but I got there and I was with Bobby, and we arrived late because Bobby, and we meet the teacher, and I go to shake his hand, and he's like, oh, we don't touch here. I'm like, okay. You better fill me in. What else goes on here? It's like, well, the male and the female get sick. Okay. What else goes on? We get up at 4:30 in the morning. Okay. We just eat 2 meals a day for the new. Okay. You know, what
I
else?
remember when Mark
We
went on it,
meditate
'cause Mark
14 hours a day.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God. Mark
okay.
went on it before. Mark did it before me, right? And he
A
actually
for apple. I like apples.
created his own system going through the alphabet, thinking of the things he liked. But I remember,
Alicia starts with A. I
I
like
like him.
Alicia.
And he went and he was wrapping up food for like to save for later and stuff. Like he was like taking away extra food because he was like, oh, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
So you're there and you do your first one, right?
I do the first one. That's a big change. And then basically somehow or other, you know, I'd read that autobiography of a yogi some point
so
at the end of
good.
1998.
Yeah.
And there was this moment where Yogananda goes on this weekend trip and he decides to test this thing that you don't need money. That it's in the Bible, but it's beyond the Bible. It's older. It's like, you know, don't worry about the money. Look at the birds.
Yeah.
You know, nature provides their food, their clothes, everything, you know. So I decided to do that for 1999. It was the end of the century. And, you know, he did a weekend.
Are you still doing that? Like just the universe provides and someone takes you out in a catamaran and someone lends you this other car. And I was just talking about this party on Saturday night, how you got that house. Remember that house in Byron that you were just someone wanted you to house sit, the guy that had created the Triton workbench, and you just had this like
I did have to do work though. I did an hour in the garden every day. It wasn't free.
Still,
but yeah, good. It was a Maccan house, the Temple of Yum.
Yeah.
Thanks, George. Yeah, no, I've been blessed. I've been given a lot of houses. I've been able to live for free a lot. But yeah, I took that 1999 off, and that went so well that then I took 2000 off. And it's not like I didn't do work. Like, you know, Bobby and I with Dad ended up running that Idea Generation event with Robert Theobald. And I didn't think I was getting any money, but we ended up getting some sponsorship from some law firm and getting a little bit of cash from that.
Right.
I love, you know, I was living with Friendy at the time and I had so much stuff I'd collected, whether it was car stuff or motorbikes. I had 3 motorbikes in pieces and I sold off all that stuff.
Right.
I had some shares, you know.
The trading post, everyone, just like that was the regular in our house. Him and the other brother. The trading post. That's
the other addiction I've got other than the chai is Facebook Marketplace.
Oh my God. I love Facebook Marketplace so much as well. I love it. I love going to the exchange. I love meeting the people. I love everything about it.
Oh, I don't know. We got ripped off on a set of wheels from a woman. Anyway, doesn't matter. Anyway, so yeah, I took those 2 years off and I just had so much time. And I was really focusing on so that in, you know, Qigong, Tai Chi, that sort of time then.
Yeah, well, when did you meet Master Liu? I just want you to like pause for a second and think, those people listening to this, like when was the last time you could say that? Like, I just had so much time, right? Just had so much time. Like we've just suddenly got into this. And I've said on this podcast before that story you said about everyone's like running around, trying to do this and distracting themselves from actually just sitting themselves. But like we've all got things a little bit all screwed up in terms of our relationship with time and how it's being spent in so many ways, don't you reckon?
Yes, but also, Leash, like what can you do with your time? You know, like there's part of me that's like, you know, during COVID, you look back at that COVID and a lot of people had time during COVID, you know, like there was a bigger pause there. And I look back at that time and I feel like I wasted a lot of time there. I could have done a lot more in that time. I could have designed some stuff. I definitely could have fixed all those surfboards in the shed. You know, I could have cleaned the shed, you know, there's a ton of stuff that I've got just sitting, waiting for my attention.
But there's always that, but there was value, I think, in that pause, just for everyone just to take a bit of
it was, but also for me, I've realized that, you know, the more prepared you are, the easier life is. Like you can have this time but you know, what can you do with it? You know, there's a certain point when you get past looking at your navel where it's like, what can I do? What can I add? How can I it's a big world. Like, how can you give it just a little nudge, just in a way that you think it could go, And, for me, a lot of what I've done and what I've looked at was looking at, making transportation cleaner and greener and looking at bikes, looking at, I started that PhD on, looking at, could you evolve technology quicker? Could you accelerate it? Like, physics is not changing. Our understanding of physics is changing, but physics is not changing.
It's a shame we can't do a slideshow here, because like if people could see the stuff you design, like when you show me the photos and you send me the things of these planes and bikes and drones, now you can this guy can build drones. He's like a total freak. My head can't even compute how you could possibly have designed that stuff. Anyway. Oh, here you go. Look. Oh, yeah. Look how clever you are. You can do all this stuff. Yeah. So what is that?
That is an 8-rotor. It's missing one of its wings there. Let me see if I can find it. No, not that one. Is it that one? There we go. So this is a model that I'm making at the moment. It's a 8-rotor vertical takeoff, horizontal flight aircraft.
God, look at this. See, I can't understand. Anyone listening to the audio, whenever I get myself around to it, I will put this video on YouTube.
So yeah, they're little components in there, like where are they? They're here. That I'm having to fit into there and work it out. I've just designed my first printed circuit board that can mount all these stuff in there. So you're just coming back to this camera. So
that's crazy.
This little guy here, that's the speed controller for the motors. That's the flight controller. The wildest thing is like that device there.
Yeah.
$130 and see how small it is. That can actually fly the full scale one as well. I mean, I wouldn't want to, but it theoretically can fly the full scale one.
Wow.
So yeah, this is my current project, and So I'm making this as a scale model, which is using basically the propellers and motors off this racing drone that I did.
Yeah.
And so it's that scale. These are a 5-inch prop.
And now we're going to get Paul talking about this, and we could sit here for another 5 hours, because one time I went on a plane with this fella, and oh my God, everything he explained to me, everything of what was going on with the wing and what was doing this and what was doing that. And I was like a teenager, and I was like, oh my God, when is this guy going to shut up? I don't want to hear any more about what this plane is doing.
Yeah, it's horses for courses.
You got.
But Lisa, I've just done just let me show you. I've just done some aerodynamics on it. I put a very basic version into this CAD, this CFD program, computational fluid dynamics program, and got some of the lift and drag figures. So that was good last week. I'm making some progress on this, and because I was like, I'm partway through designing this thing, and I'm like, shit, is it actually going to lift enough weight? Like, I'm assuming it is, but is it? So I thought, all right, before I go too much further and find out I've got to change the wing shape, I better actually, do some CFD. And it's so easy now, like compared to
none of that's easy. I just think you've got a whole nother section of your brain that I never got given. I cannot even turn maps in my head if I have to do those tests. I don't barely know my left from my right.
Oh yeah, right.
I didn't get the spatial.
Anyway, so I had those 2 years off.
Yeah.
And I did do some work in the end. Like, I ended up doing bits and pieces. I did stuff with Dad at the World Centre for New Thinking. I sold some shares, I sold a computer, and I ended up basically getting rid of assets and also having just some work coming in, and then just living really cheap and just realizing how little, when you're happy, how little money you need.
And that is something of the Paul, there's so many things we could do a whole episode on, so many parts of you, but in terms of your way of being and your minimalist way of being, it's quite phenomenal. Like when I'm in your house, there's just so few things. And then even when Paul travels, it's very rare, kind of no matter how long you're going places for, that you ever travel with more than just your little black backpack. Just
Well, sometimes it depends how many months I'm going for. Sometimes I take the 2 backpacks, one on the back and one on the front, but they're both pretty small.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Is like if you're happy and you know it,
Happy,
clap your
Paulie? Are
hands.
you happy?
I am, and I am, but I'm also like at the moment. Marta was away on the weekend. She went and did this wonderful weekend with this Mexican elder and did Temescal, like sweat lodges and the Rose Way and the Red Way and all these things. And so she's had this weekend away, and I just, as soon as she gets back, this smile pops on my face. You know, this like the heart, and then I realize when she's not here though, when it's just me and me. The relationship with me is not that great. Like I'm a shit boss and I'm a shit worker. Like, and I don't know which one causes which, but I don't set out my tasks clear enough. So I'm a bad boss. And then when I go and work, I'm like,
I might have a chai.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just that. It's like I will hit a speed hump and then I'll go off and do a different thing.
Yeah.
You know, I just won't stay on task and just go through the discomfort of not knowing. I'm doing so many things that I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I know around, I've done similar, but you know, it's like yesterday I spent a whole day working out how I can 3D print one of these wings so that the 3D printer doesn't have to come off. It can just do it like, it can just do one path.
Yeah.
And then it does that whole thing. And I spent a whole day, and then I felt a bit better. I found a guy did a video, and he made it look really simple, but he said it took him 3 weeks to work it out.
Yeah.
So at least I've got, you know, some help. It's great today with what you can do. So yeah, but I'm very hard on myself. It's like,
that's something I think people can relate to listening to this. Like even just hear you talking through that thought process. Like I think other people think, they look out and they think everyone's got their life together and they're organized and they're managing all this and they're not procrastinating and they're getting stuff done. But I think if you kind of went into the inner workings of most people do tend to be hard on themselves and harsh on themselves. And that's a big thing that I want to help people with, because actually I'm not very hard on myself in a lot of ways. Like I used to be.
Or you don't notice it.
Yeah, maybe I'm so freaking hard on myself that I don't notice it. But I definitely used to be, and I used to get disappointed.
I think you're a good boss though, aren't you? To yourself.
I think
like
so.
You're pretty organized in the way that you set out what you're going to do. Like you write lists and...
Oh my God, I can't survive without a list. Like I'm like, yeah, lists, planning the night before, like that's one thing. And I do want to do a whole session on kind of time and organization. I'm naturally very messy and disorganized person. So I've had to slowly build in a lot of discipline there. But yeah, I've always got lists going and prioritizing, and often doing the thing that you don't want to do first, you got to do first in your day. Like it's called eat the frog. You just like all the things, because it's easy to go and do the fun things or the easier things, but actually it's like, right, I just got to get that done first, and that can be quite satisfying then.
I think what I'm going to do now is write down what I'm going to do and just spend a bit more time writing about the task and just setting it out a bit with my new friend ChatGPT-4.
Oh my God, Paul is a big fan of. He did an amazing limerick for my brother's son birthday.
That was ChatGPT-3. That was the old version.
So you're at the You're at the next level.
I'm doing a month of paying for it, and so far I'm pretty impressed.
Okay, well, it's pretty nuts. All right, there's so much more, and we're not even going to talk for that much longer. I mean, we're not quite at Joe Rogan podcast stage yet, where we're going to do 3 hours, right?
Oh, so you didn't tell me that.
We're already on like an hour and 10 minutes, and we've just, barely.
This happened to me the other day. I did a podcast with a mate, and we got an hour into it, and he's like, I didn't realize this was going to go for 3 hours. We're going to have to pause this and come back. So I've got to do part 2 with him. Okay.
Paul loves a chat. Leash loves a chat. So yeah. Off we go chatting. So this is your first Vipassana, and then tell the viewers how many Vipassanas you've done. 10-day silent retreat, and you've just heard people. It's like the extreme sport of silent retreats.
I've done over 10.
So that's like 100.
One of them days. Serving, and a few 3-day ones, and I don't know. I'm lost count, but I haven't been in ages. I can't remember the last time.
You've probably done 100 and something days in silence, which is.
But it's not that much compared to the people that do it. Like it's
it's pretty significant.
But I did spend a couple of years really in it, Like,
Yeah.
I did spend a couple of years where I lived the full Sheila lifestyle, which is like right speech, right work, right relationship, like no swearing, no lying, not even for jokes. That's the hard bit. No swearing, like, you know, you'd struggle with that, Leash.
I know. Well, I try. Like when my channeling, I think I said in one of the episodes recently when I was first channeling, I actually couldn't swear. It would gobbledygook, and then I think my human self overrode that and came back. The most significant Vipassana journey for me was, I don't know, maybe a fifth one. I don't know where it is in the scheme of things, where you came out. I don't know how much you remember about this, but you came out and you rang me and you were crying on the phone. Do you remember where that was?
Doesn't take much to get me to cry.
Where was that on the? I don't know if you remember where that was. Do you want to share about what you can remember about that and why you were talking to me like in that way?
Was it my fifth? I think it might have been an earlier one.
I don't know. I actually have no idea.
I think I've got a feeling that I was at down at Grey River, so it must have been when I was with Renata when I rang you then. Yeah. I've got a feeling.
People are noticing at this point now. We've already had 3 girlfriends named at this point. Paul, look, looks like Johnny Depp, dark skin, green eyes. So, like, the ladies love Paulie, and Paul loves the ladies.
Love me and punish me. Yeah. So
all girls, actually, you've named. Anyway, keep going.
I mean, it happened for you and for DJ, where I came out of Vipassana, and I don't know if it was the same one or a different one, when I realized that the people that I love the most, you know, my direct family, my direct siblings, are the people that I've been most violent with, you know. Like the person that I've hit the most is DJ, for sure, 100%. I barely hit anyone in my life. I've only ever had one fight, really.
Yeah.
And that wasn't me. That guy hit me, and then next thing you know, it was barely a fight.
Yeah.
But DJ, man, we've gone at each other with cricket bats and thrown each
I just
other
actually
through
don't even
walls
know. Now, as I'm a parent, I actually don't know how Mum managed it. Like,
remember the time she came home and we had the whole backyard on fire and we were playing flaming tennis? We worked out how to inject petrol into a tennis ball, and then we'd light it up, and every time you'd hit it, it'd just flames everywhere.
Oh my God, it's coming like a vague memory. I remember coming home and there being a hole in the wall from one of you pushing the other one into the wall. I remember one of you putting filling a shoe with water and putting it on the roof. Like the other person's shoe, like filling it with water, and like you'd put, like, it's probably like someone got a new pair of Nikes or something, and one of you filled it with water and put one on the roof. I remember that.
I rang DJ and I said after Vipassana, I'm like, look, I really want to apologize. You know, I've realized that I'm the most, you know, you've been the person I've been most violent with in my life, and I really want to apologize. He goes, oh, you're so sensitive. And he goes, you know, I asked for it every time.
You should get DJ on this podcast. That would be fun.
I know. He's like, you know, I asked for it every time. And I instantly went, you did ask for it every time. And I would have hit him again.
Oh God.
You know, but with you, I remember, you know, I used to torture you.
Oh my God. These brothers, I adored them. I still adore them. And they just were bullied the shit out of me, to be honest. Just like.
Alicia was a little smart ass, and she's hyper intelligent. And we worked out she was smarter than us from a young age, because, like, you know, we used to get, I think, $1 for each year old we were a week, pocket money.
10 cents, mate. It was 10 cents. So, like, if you were 7, you get 6. Back then, we weren't getting like 7. I wasn't getting $7 a week as a 7-year-old. It was like cents. It was 7.
No, it was
Think about what you could buy with 70 cents. You could get like 4.
No, because you were 9 and you said, I'm 9.5. I want $9.50.
Right. Yeah.
And DJ and I looked at each other and just went, like, didn't even barely think of that, you know? I'm like, this chick's got it worked out.
Oh God!
But I remember we used to hold you down and
this was horrific.
Hang Gorbies.
Oh,
and then
so
just
bad.
Like hang.
Oh my God!
Green.
And he'd try and suck it up, but then sometimes we just couldn't. The momentum had gone too far. He'll fall on me like, oh, sorry, didn't mean it. And then you'd get your 2-minute noodles. He'd put a noodle through his nose and through his mouth and spin it around, and then like put it in my noodles. Like,
Oh,
and DJ, and I remember Tasha's our beautiful Sri Lankan sister-in-law, and she's got two brothers, and she'd say, oh, they used to put a pillow on me and fart on me. And I said to her, you are kidding me. You had the pillow in between. Like, that, how can you be like,
you were frustrating, Leisha. You were
I was
frustrating.
frustrating, and I used to dib on them and dob on them, and when they,
She'd dob on us, and
they
she
were
was
supposed to
such a
babysit me,
smart
and they
ass.
took cars out and did all sorts of things. And
yeah, like I'd have friends over, and we'd be year 9, and we'd be smoking dope, and then she'd be like telling mum and dad they're smoking cigarettes and pretending like they're drunk. It's like,
oh my God!
Whose
so then
team are you on?
You came out
Whose
of a
team are you on? There's the kid team and the adult team.
No, I didn't understand that. So you came out of Vipassana, and I remember this, and you were crying, and it was like such a sincere apology. And I think at the time I was like DJ, like, oh yeah, that's just normal. Like, that's just kids growing up, and like, whatever. It wasn't something that had scarred me. Or so I thought. And in it, actually, I always say to people, like, there's not much that really phases me or bothers me. And I think a lot of it is because you guys like put me through the ringer.
Tested you to the limit.
Yeah, correct. But I have spoken to friends and some other people that have got really tricky situations with siblings. And I know there'll be people listening to this that have tricky situations with siblings. And this just might be an invitation for you to think about, like, is there an apology to be extended? Because I think it's just been so powerful. I mean, you and I, we are so close, and I don't know with sliding doors whether we'd still be as close, but I just feel like that piece has definitely been part of that. Because it takes a lot. Like, that takes courage. That takes for someone to acknowledge, particularly you, I would say, actually, because, you know, you like to be, you know, things right.
You're like very sensitive at the end of a Vipassana, you know, like.
Yeah. But to acknowledge that,
when you see stuff, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
You know, when you and you feel it, and you get into the depth of it, and you know, you feel it.
But equally, you could have felt all of that and not expressed it. Like, you didn't have to do that next step with DJ or with me. And I just think, like, it's so commendable that you did express that. Like, I love that about you. I think it's like, yeah, it's very cool.
You're an asshole, but you apologize for it.
You know, but you had a lot going on growing up, and I just think
I did. And I mean, the most of the stuff with DJ was because I just developed so late, and I just didn't get any pubic hair till I was 18. And DJ
everyone just welcome to
it.
Paul. Now everyone knows why I'm so open. Like, I just over overshare it, because look, it's in the family, right?
Yeah.
Paul's got the Asian, more of the Asian. DJ doesn't. DJ was 2 years younger, developing faster. You can imagine, as brothers. I mean, even it got to the point, and those who are parents listening to this, got to the point where you guys couldn't even live in the same house for a period. Like,
no, that DJ
moved out
to
live with with the family friends for, I don't know who was in what year at that time.
Yeah, I was so angry with him. I felt so betrayed. You know, like. You know, we were so close, DJ and we were again beyond that. But, you know, that I remember being in Bali and being 15 and hanging out with, you know, Maddie and Ben, and then being a bit older. Yeah. And then DJ, you know, shaming me in front of them, going, got any of these, Paul?
Oh,
you know, got any of these? And like, he's 13, I'm 15. He's a year and a half younger than me. And I'm just like,
oh yeah. And it's just like a perfect target, like a perfect thing for a teenager who's trying to rile the big brother up.
Yeah. But yeah, that was I think the crux of it, and also just the frustration of being a teenager and just being petrified that I'd get caught. You know, that the guys at school would find out. I mean, it was bad enough that these guys who were older friends of ours luckily weren't in the school, but my fear was that I'd be found out.
Yeah. And back then, like in the 80s, it's a bit of a tough game around the streets and stuff. I don't know.
It was tough. Growing up in Chatty. I mean, it wasn't as tough as some places, but I mean, it you know, but I grew up with the tough kids. Like I was friends with the toughest kids in school. And then I remember when they got beaten up, And I
Yeah.
was like, God, how tough could those kids be? Like the
Oh my
Lebanese
God.
tigers beat up this guy I knew, and I was like, geez, how tough are they?
Oh my God.
Beat
When
him up.
I just think of when you guys used to do the ramps with the bikes and we'd line up like the bodies and the bikes would have to be jumping over the body. Like it's just crazy looking back at all the things that used to go on. So then, okay, we're moving forward, right?
Yeah.
We're going to be hitting an hour and a half in a minute. So we're going to wrap
Well,
it
I think I started the Qigong. I started teaching when I moved up to Cape Trib. Remember, I moved to Cape Trib
yes,
like 2001.
Yes. And you were running the kayaking.
I had those 2 years off.
Yeah.
And then I ended up working at Qantas again. I went back and moved to Sydney and worked there. They had a problem. I was there for 3 months. And then after that, I had a holiday up in Cape Trib and we decided to move there and try and buy a house. And then when I was like, I need to have some stable income for at least 3 years to get a loan. And I was like, I'd been offered to do a PhD through this guy, Yuri Belsky, who came to that event, the
thinking,
idea generation, it was called. I basically explored all of that to try and buy this house, but RMIT being RMIT, they didn't get their act together, and I didn't get the approval through till March instead of December, and the house sold in January. So then
another sliding door, right? Like had you bought that house in Cape Trib and
I would have been then locked in with Renata and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But then she said, look, that was your idea to move to Cape Trib. That didn't work. Now we're going to do my idea. I'm like, what's your idea? She goes, let's move to Byron Bay. And I was like, oh, great idea. Like, because by then I had got the PhD, I had the scholarship, I had income.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Byron and then got there and I had a very interesting time. Like we went in different directions. I was doing my PhD, doing heaps of Qigong, heaps of Tai Chi, working in the garden. She didn't have a lot on. We both were learning to surf, but then she was partying a lot and I was partying too, but I would go home, at 10 o'clock, go to bed, wake up, go back and pick her up the next morning, and she would have been up all night partying and doing all sorts of things. And I'd have a boogie in the morning and then leave, and then we just went in opposite directions, and that was the year I met Danny Schreiber, and I met him when she was away, so it must have been around the middle of the year.
God, we could do a whole podcast on his vision and what he
so I ended up going and living with him for a couple of weeks in between places, and that's when I first drank the Aussie Waska, the Australian version of the acacia instead of the Amazonian brew with the in the ayahuasca brew they've got a leaf, the carpi, and then that's got the DMT in it, and then they've got the vine. They call that the jagubi, so it's like the queen and the king, the hyena and the jagubi, and then in the Aussie Waska version is an acacia. And acacias commonly, the indigenous talk about it, some of them, that it was used for superhuman powers. So they knew about it already.
Yeah, right.
But Danny had found out this brew where instead of using the vine, which was hard to get in Australia, he was using this Syrian rue, which is like it's a plant from the Middle East they used to dye the red carpet. This is where the thought of the red carpet journey comes from. Is the people who were dyeing the red carpets would start tripping because it was a MA inhibitor. So, because normally if you have DMT orally, it's not orally active. If you smoke it, it is, because it gets into your bloodstream quick enough. But if you drink it... This is a
space where Paul and I just diverge again, because Alicia hasn't gone through all this journey, except for the one time where he tried to put an acid tab in his young sister's mouth at a party.
Yeah, that was pretty loose. Your friend was happy to have it though. And that was a wild night. People say I changed after that night.
Right, okay.
I was never quite the same, because I went to heaven that night. I had one of those trips when you're in heaven.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get you back on the podcast for that heaven acid trip, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, I drank the acacia and had that first experience of that, which is, similar to ayahuasca. And that was pretty amazing. And then that formed a big bond with Danny.
Yeah.
Which then, I ended up, not long after that, breaking up with Renata, moved in with Danny for a while, came back down to Melbourne at the same time my PhD stopped getting paid. There was a whole confusion where I was given this PhD scholarship. They agreed I could do it in Byron rather than doing it in Melbourne. But because I wasn't in Melbourne, I hadn't been to the orientation. I didn't even know I had a student pass email. I had my own email address. I was emailing back and forth with my supervisor. I was doing all the work that I had to do, but the actual school didn't know. And they were sending me emails saying, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. I wasn't getting them.
I never knew about this.
Because I wasn't replying to that, they put me at risk and then they stopped paying me. And I rang my supervisor. I'm like, what's going on? Why have they stopped paying me? I don't know. Everything's fine as far as so they'd never even talked to him. Like he's in the same building. They'd never even spoken to him. Yeah. Never even picked up the phone and gone, and rung him.
Yeah.
So it took me till April to get a meeting. And then, in the end, they offered it back to me for less money. And I just said, look, I need an apology. I need you guys to actually pay me the full amount. I need you to back pay me now to the start of the year. I need you to actually supply me my second supervisor as you're supposed to. Yeah. And how about kicking some more money because I'm not costing you anything to be down there and using your facilities, Right. Anyway, I never heard back.
How'd that go down?
I never heard back from them, but I realized that they just, they weren't able to handle the vision of what I was trying to do. And now it's
so many sliding door moments in this.
Yeah, I'm kind of back to it now in a certain way. As I'm designing this aircraft at the moment, my head's back into that same PhD of what I'd come to was that, realistically for technology to advance, you need more people, you need more minds, you need more ideas, you need more creativity. And you need the tools to be really simple. You need to take all of the engineering and basically codify it so that it's like a game. There's a great game. I tried to get Darcy into it.
Darcy's my 16-year-old boy.
Space Kerbal, where you can just build rockets and test them and see how they fly,
okay.
and it's all three-dimensional components and you pull them in together and then you assemble it, it clicks together and you take it out and you launch it and you see how it launches. And I think we need that for planes, and for drones and for everything. So people can play these games and try different components, try different propellers, try different wings, try different foils. And it's very simple. And, you can race them against each other or test them or fly them and simulate them and see how it works. And that's where I think we're kind of heading towards now. And I'm using lots of elements of it, which are a bit more complicated, and some of them they cost and some of the software costs, but I think eventually it'll become really quite free and people can create their own cars, their own bikes, their own motorbikes, because all of the different components become three-dimensional little components in a game, in a simulation, and you can just click them together and then just run it through a course and just see how it goes on that course, or fly it remotely and whatever. So I'm sort of still on that where I'd got to from that 1 year of PhD. I'm in that same
kind of coming back around to it, like.
Yeah. Well, I try to leave it. Like I really try to leave the engineering and I try and put it away because there's parts of me that doesn't like being in my head. There's parts of me that does not like being on the computer. I don't like sitting on the computer.
Yeah.
But there's also these things that just won't leave me alone. Like there's just designs that have to happen and things occur. Like now I'm back into this because this Chinese partner has offered to, supply me with all the propulsion equipment. It's like a big chunk of cash worth of equipment. And to make a prototype to move the company forward. So that's why I'm now building a scale model and doing all these things. So it's all come back around. But this was with me trying to leave this and just focus on Qigong. Like this was,
See, that's the thing where you've got like sometimes this calling or this purpose or this something. It's like you can keep, and people relate to this, where you can keep trying to go, no, that's not for me, and compartmentalize. But it's like this, it's there. It's not going to leave you alone.
Yeah. I mean, I've been this year going, I just want to do one thing. I do so many different jobs here to keep the whole show afloat.
You literally do so many different jobs.
I know. And like I've been doing 10 different jobs just, and it's taxing because each time, like, even if you're changing clothes, between the job and you're changing gears in your mind.
What's my Qigong teacher clothes? What's my video producing wedding for thing? What's my this clothes?
Yeah. So it's like there's just this, you have inertia in one thing and then you have to slow down that inertia. You have to change gears and then build up inertia in the next thing.
Yeah,
So I was
but
like, I
there's
just want to
something
do one
about
thing.
being multi-passionate. Like there's something that a lot of people listening to this can also relate to. Like they actually feed in and energize different parts of ourselves when you do have those
But
things.
I just want to do one thing. So now
Yeah.
it's like, well, no, it's going to be two. It's going to,
Yeah.
I can't let go of the
Can't give up your
Qigong. It's not like I'm going
Qigong.
to stop the Qigong.
Yeah.
And it's so valuable for me. And I just love teaching.
And you can't give that up because, well, you can, of course, you can do whatever you want. But just to give a shout out to Paulie, like Paul came and ran a Qigong class for me at Byron. And like I knew you were a good Qigong teacher, but I actually had no concept of how good you were. And your class was phenomenal. And to me, it was just this integration of this aerospace brain who understands kind of like quantum physics and how you spoke about energy and how it works through the body and levity and gravity and all this and it was like, oh my God, I was just in awe listening to it. So that's my big brother. Like, how cool the way you were describing all of that stuff. Like you've got a really unique way of teaching. And yeah, I think it would be a shame to not continue that.
Paul DA Playground on Instagram if you want to watch a video.
Yeah, well, you're going to give me all the links for you.
Yeah.
Even like, because there'll be people interested in different things. Like even that drone link where you had that guy racing your drone, who's like who was that guy that raced one of your drones that you?
Thomas Bitmana. He's the ex-world champion.
Yeah. So that's cool. Like all that kind of stuff. We put it all in the show notes because we're like running a really super professional podcast here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think it's been an interesting journey, this life so far.
Yeah, I know. What's next for Paulie Dumais, do we think?
Well, I mean, there's two things. I mean, there's this aircraft and the Qigong. So I'm keeping on working on the Qigong. I'm building this scale model, which I hope to get done in the next 2 weeks. And then Marta's sister gets here and we're going off sailing for a week.
Oh, yes.
She's
They do also,
with a partner from Spain.
Paul lives like this beautiful balance of fun, play, work, catamaranging around.
Well, I'm very lucky to have a good friend like Thomas who can, who can take us on his cat. I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
I'm very blessed with my friends. I'm very blessed.
Yeah, but you also, and this is something that was spoken about you on Saturday night, like you spend a lot of time in friendships. Like you've really put a lot of time into.
Yeah, I have. I've pulled back a fair bit. It's time for me to focus on me at the moment, and I'm cutting down on the favors and I'm trying to really pull back on saying yes for everything.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens because you never know, how doing something for someone comes around later.
Yeah.
Like you never know. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get the cash to make this full-scale prototype.
Yeah. But if there are any investors out here listening, or if anyone knows anyone who's interested in all of this stuff, like hook them up with Paul Dumais, because we've all known and been knowing that like at some point with the brain you've got and the way that you're able to put things together, like it's going to come off in one way, shape or form.
It's just wild that like I designed this thing 10 years ago. They're just hitting the market now. Like, can you imagine, right? The first motorbike, like the first powered motorbike, and there's the first company producing a motorbike. And then imagine you're the guy that had that whole concept 10 years earlier.
Oh, yeah.
And then you didn't do anything about it.
Yeah. And there's so many stories like that, because I think that.
Well, it's not like I did nothing about it. I spent 3 months designing the concept, doing the feasibility study.
Yeah.
And but I got to this point of going, right, it needs $40 million investment to do the flight software.
Yeah.
And I went, oh shit, I'm never going to get that. And then walked away. But now it's not $40 million. Like 10 years later, it's now ripe.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And
the software is a lot cheaper. The hardware is a lot cheaper. The understanding of the whole thing is a lot cheaper. And the tools for doing the design, like that aerodynamics, like that would have taken me ages to do that. And it would have cost me a fortune in software, or I would have had to spend a lot of time using open source software to work it out. I just paid €50 and
Yeah. Wow.
handed onto an online cloud service that went and crunched the simulation on some computer that I probably couldn't afford,
Yeah.
and
Right.
did it for me. And then I
Yeah.
went,
It's
oh,
amazing. Technology now is just mind blowing. And to think about what it's going to be like in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years or however long. On that note about the motorbike, I think we should probably just publicly recognize that I think you owe your mother $500.
no, I don't.
Oh, look at him. No, I don't. No, I don't. Well, isn't it the
Well, I owe her a lot
case?
more than that. I owe her a significant amount more than that.
Isn't it the case that you wanted to buy a motorbike when you were 18 and you said
Yes.
it's $500 and she said, well,
600.
$600, and she said, I'll pay you $500 or $600 not to get it. But then you've said in this podcast you had 3 motorbikes since that date. So I think you actually owe
That was
back.
that specific motorbike.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
You're gonna get technical with your poor mum.
Yeah.
What
No, but you know what she did?
What'd she do?
She said, I'll give you $600 not to buy that motorbike. And I thought, wow, okay. So if I've got $600 and she gives me $600,
Then I can buy a $1,200 motorbike.
No, then I could buy a Mazda RX-3.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I said, all right, deal. And she goes, you owe me $600. The debt's cleared. And I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, well, we had these family diaries by the TV, by the phone, and I've kept some of them when we were kids because we didn't have mobiles back then. And so you'd be like, Paul's staying at this one's, I'm going to Chadston, I'm doing this. Be like, I looked back through and it's like, Paul owes mum $15. Paul owes mum $25. Going back through these. Oh, it's funny.
Yeah, I still owe mum a lot of money. God bless her.
Oh, God bless her. So we could talk forever, and I know we talk all the time. Is there anything,
what do you want to know?
Is there anything you want to share, like in terms of, say, if someone's listening to this and they're particularly like, I love having you on as my brother. I love having you because you've always been that spiritual mentor ahead of me on all of this stuff. But also,
do you remember when you realized that? You rang me one day and you're doing something, and then you'd found some chronology of spiritual awakening. And then you'd gone, oh, Paulie, you've done them all. I just realized.
Really?
Yeah.
God, I have no memory of that.
I don't know where it was. You'd done some course or done something, and there was some chronology of awakening. And then you suddenly went through and went, tick, tick, tick.
Paul's done this, Paul's done that. Yeah. Well, that sounds about right. But you've been through all this, and particularly I think it's really nice to hear a male voice in this space because, you hear women say, and I got my first tarot reading and my first astrology reading and I followed the sign and I listened to my inner voice. But there's something really, I mean, maybe for you in the circles you're in Byron, but where I am down in Melbourne, like that is it's rare. And even if there are guys on that journey, they're not openly coming out and sharing that. So I think that potentially there might be one person who listens to this or passes this on to their partner who's on the journey, who this kind of frees them to go, oh, look at this like masculine guy, he's the aerospace engineer, he's all these things, but he's able to, integrate. And I think that is something with you, like you do have your masculine and your feminine, pretty well balanced actually.
Yeah, I don't mind wearing a tutu occasionally.
And your hair's probably longer than mine as well. I can't see it on
it's tied up at the moment.
On the thing. Is there anything you want to share, like any wisdom in your journey of what you've learnt along the way? Because there are a lot of people struggling.
I remember the most integrated that I've ever felt in that male and female was like the second time I drank the Aussie and that would have been 2003, and I was out at the Exodus Festival, the 7-day festival out west of here in Tenterfield. Amazing festival. And I'd been running the healing space there. My friend had organised it, and then she'd had a bit of a breakdown and I'd taken over. I'd just broken up with my fiance at the time. I'd just come back from Vipassana and done 3 days there. And I ended up getting healings from all the people there and had some of the most amazing healings of my life. My friend Budita adjusted my tailbone.
I remember that one.
3 hours and it just cleared every tweak through the spine.
Yeah.
And I just didn't feel any pain. I could just move and go, oh my God. And then I ended up brewing it up
with Danny and another friend showing me how to do it, and sat up all night brewing this brew, and with the acacia leaf and this Syrian rue, a root of and we went out in this amazing indigenous space near the birthing rock up there, and rolled out a red carpet and lit a fire and drank. And yeah, I had an amazing experience that time. Like I left the whole reality, and only came back really when Danny opened a fan. He was worried about me.
Yeah.
And I was going through this letting go process because, you know, doing the breakup and having that whole week there, each moment I'd get in touch with where I was holding on energetically. I've been doing so much practice. I'd just done vipassana. I've been doing so much, you know, qigong and tai chi, that when I would feel energetically where I'm holding on to something, I'd just let it go. I'd be able to dissolve it down into the ground. And then I would go along, and then I'd realize, you know, because when you're with someone for 3 years and you've got a future plan, there's so many ways that you relate together. You're like your best friends, your housemates, you know, your rally co-pilots, you know, your surfing buddies, your dance partners, your lovers, your little kids playing innocently together, you're each other's mother and father, you know, sparring partners, you know, all of these things. And each one of those relationships has its way of having a hold on you, where you've got a past to it, you've got a future to it. And so each time in that process of letting go, I'd come on to another point of holding in a different way, and then I'd have to let it go. So I was in this process of letting go, drank the somacacia, and was going so much, like the bottom part of my body dissolved. And I was like, hey, Dan, I might need you to take my pants off for me, because like if I let go anymore, I already can't feel anything down there. I might shit myself. and Danny's like, okay, Paulie, look, just give
Might
me a
be
minute.
too late for that, Paulie.
He's like, I'll come back. Dan's South African. No, he's passed now. Where is he? I've normally got his picture here.
Dude, it's normal. It was back on that wall.
He fell on the ground. There he is.
There you go, Danny. We love you, Danny.
Danny boy.
Visionary.
Anyway, he came back over and he said, look, Paulie, like everyone's on their journey, and if you do a poo, it'll probably stink and it might be no good for people's journey. And I was like, of course, you know, other people. And from being so far gone that the bottom half of my body was disappeared and dissolved, I suddenly was just back. You know, walked with him up to the car to get some toilet paper and did what I had to do and came back. And then I was ready, and I was like, the fire was warm, I was comfortable, I was on a sheepy, I had a doona, perfectly high, just released, relaxed, let go of everything, and kept getting in touch with something that I was holding on to.
Yeah.
And then let it go. Something I was holding on to, let it go. And the final one was Mum. And so with Mum, I just really thanked her, held her, and I don't know what I was like, but for me, I thought that this was all illusion and it was to be transcended. That was where my head was at the time. And so that I was just going to let go and go, you know, disappear.
Oh, that's right. Oh, so you were letting go of Mum, as in you thought you were like done of this world, and you were doing she was your last attachment, holding you with the silver cord here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so I let go. And then at that point, I felt my heart as this like hairball wafting in a fluid, like with, you know, so this point here, just, you know, but there was no body. There was just that point being all these hairs and them actually being knotted and tubular. And then I heard this voice saying, let go one more time. We've got you. You're okay. Let go one more time. And I knew the voice. It was familiar. It was multi-resonant, as if 1,000 million little beings within me were all saying it at once. It was feminine and multi-resonant, like, you know, somewhat reminiscent of Oriella. And as I let go into that, they spun around each one of those little hairs, this tight spiral, unknotting each one of those thousands of hairs while squeezing the gunk out of the tubes.
Wow.
And I was aware of the trajectory of each one of them.
Wow.
And because I was so let go, I was just able to experience it. And I was like, the thought was, thank God I am let go, because if I at all was engaging in this process at all, or freaking out or trying, it's like I'd get minced. It's like, you know, when someone goes in an MRI with a metal in their head or something. It just was like such a huge download of information to be able to experience that, to be so present. But you could only do that by not being in the past and not being in the future. Just having to be there, completely let go of all attachments. And then from that untying that knot, that chakra, connecting to the planet, I was the cosmos. Like my experience was my body was, you know, stars. And, and it wasn't like I was outside of the stars looking at the stars. I was the cosmos. And then Danny opened this fan, which is this, you know, South American shamanic technique when, you know, you're worried about someone and you waft it on their face. But before he even wafted it, from being in the cosmos, just as soon as it opened, yes, Dan. And then it was like, and he was like shocked. And I don't think I was breathing, because the whole feeling of that letting go was like one out breath, and I'd breathe out further. I'd feel the tension, and then I would let go further. And it felt like one long out breath. So I don't know, you know, what, I can't ask him because he's passed. Maybe you can ask him, Leisha, if you could channel him. Was I breathing or not breathing? Anyway, he opened the fan and I opened my eyes and I'm like, yes, Dan. And then I was like, oh, Dan. Oh, Earth. Oh,
I'm back.
Paul. And then I was like very confused while I was back.
And
it took me a while. And then that, coming out of that is when I found out the PhD had been stopped being paid. I'd just broken up a relationship. I thought I had income coming in. I'd given everything to the ex-fiance there. And so suddenly I was like without a house, without a car, without everything, without an income. And I was very lucky. I think I was very blessed in that, you know, I stayed with Dan for a while. Paul Kyoto was very generous to me and put me up, and then Dad put me up, and when I worked this stuff out. But then, you know, I was sort of like, why did I come back? I really transcended. Why did I come back? And I think, you know, two reasons. One is that, you know, they would have been left there with a dead body and it would have been terrible. And for all you people here, it would have been horrific. I might have been fine.
Oh, you would have been fine.
Yeah. But I think the thing that I've realized is that I've come from there. You know, to me, it felt like home, you know, and it felt like that I
How
had
fun
this...
is it going to be when, like, we both want to live here for a long time, but I'm looking forward to as well when the conversations we're having when we have passed and we're back and we're like, oh, and where we can see so much more of our connections and which other lives we've lived together and what's next, and so cool.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, for me, I was very confused while I was back, and I ended up like going, well, Danny brought me back, so I'll help Danny. And that's what started the whole Starseed project. And well, he already had the Starseed project, but it helped me go and help him to, you know, work on that whole plan, to take that plan to the owners of the land at Jaeger's Pig Farm.
So no one knows what you're talking about, so you might want to give a quick...
Oh, so, you know, Danny had this dream of building this botanical gardens and healing center and meeting space and market space and kind of like a new age shopping center. And he'd, you know, he wanted to plant lots of food and lots of gardens and lots of medicinal plants.
So needed.
Have like a well-being center with hot springs and all these sorts of stuff. It was a beautiful dream, and I was like, I like it.
Yeah.
And so I started working with him, and we spent, you know, 6 months or something working on that. And I was living with him between Melbourne and there. And then we got, I suggested we get this, an option with the family. And he's like, what's that? And I said, it's like, well, you get an agreement on a price and a time frame for you to give it to them. And so we ended up getting that option. We went and, you know, made up a contract with them and got an option, showed them what we wanted to do. They liked the idea. And then we, you know, once we had that, we went out seeking the money, you know, and then we kind of got to the point where, you know, he pulled the pin on it. I think I was coming down for Christmas, and I was going to get you to help me write up a contract with him where we were going to run the business that would, so the land would be bought, held in trust, and we would have a business that would lease space off it, which then would lease spaces in the land to do different things,
Yeah.
and then feed money back into the trust to continue to develop the land. At any rate, so that fell over at that point. I ended up going and doing a heap more vipassana, came back and ended up in Melbourne for a while, then in Newcastle for a while, and really that's when I was living that Shila lifestyle of really meditating every morning, every night, very calm life, not socializing, not partying, no women, just like living in Newcastle. And then after that, I was working for that catamaran design company, Shonning, and then that's when I ended up back in Byron. Afterwards, I came up for a couple of weeks. My friend John was away, John Lorrow, and I stayed in his place in South Golden. And I got to the end of the 2 weeks. I said, listen, I want to stay here. And he goes, well, you can stay till end of summer, Paul. And he was away traveling. So I was in this house by myself for free.
And so many times the universe, like you just step out and the goes, yep.
Yeah.
We've got
and
you,
so
Paul.
then I ended up, staying there, got to the end of summer. I said, I don't want to go, Johnny. He goes, well, you better start paying rent, Paul. And I lived there for a couple of years. And then Danny said, look, why don't you come live back on Starseed and help me out. And, you don't have to pay rent and I'll give you a room. And so then I moved in the house with Danny and came back into the Starseed project and worked on that and ended up building a tea house and a big deck there out of recycled timber and running a bamboo building festival.
Are there any links to that thing that you built as well? Like, that's very cool.
Yeah, there's somewhere or other. Somewhere or other.
It has been an interesting journey, Paulie, for your first, half the century on it and a little bit.
Yeah.
And, there's so much more. There's just so much more. And we got to wrap it up, man. We're like almost at 2 hours just chatting. I
think it's enough.
I think we've done well for anyone who's stuck with us the whole time with this sister and
rambling,
brother, just having a great little.
But I was going somewhere, Leash, though.
Yeah, well, I wanted you to just share, like, what
that experience. The thing that I wanted to say, that experience of like being gone and coming back. That's the reason I started telling that story.
Yeah,
is in the days after that where I was in this really deep bliss, having been out into the cosmos, and which was like a balm, because it was like, this earth is such a weird experience, gravity and fear. Like there was no fear there.
No.
There was no fear at all. And then returning back to here, my experience was of being both aspects of myself, the feeling and the felt. So there's the part of us that reaches out to feel, to experience. And there's the part of us that gets experienced.
Yeah.
But you can do both. You can look from one side and the other side, looking this way towards that, feeling this, and then looking from that towards this, feeling that. And it's very difficult to describe when everything resolves down to two things, this yin and this yang.
Yeah.
But it was very like, it's the masculine and the feminine. It's like when a man touches a woman and the woman receives that touch, but it was happening within one consciousness. It was the divine male and divine feminine. I say divine because the feeling was divine, not that it's divinity, just that it was as if my mind reaching to internally feel within myself was a pleasurable experience to then be felt. Like the hand that was the awareness was going towards, it receiving that awareness was pleasurable. The feeling from it, the awareness was feeling, was pleasurable. This circuit, the feeling and the felt, and the two, that's all. And it was for quite a period of time that occurred. And I think if people can have that experience of just trying to recognize those two aspects of awareness, that you can be the feeling and that you can be the felt. You are both,
Is that the same as, because people like to get a version of that without having to have acid and ayahuasca and all of those things, Is that the same as the feeling, like on a more basic level, the feeling of like you experiencing a feeling like sadness or whatever it is, but then there's another part of you that is able to, it's different, isn't it? Because I'm thinking more of that observer part of yourself, that like you feel the sadness, but then you sense yourself feeling the sadness. But that's
Well,
more.
look, we're here in a body, right? We have this physicality, this, these, which really can move within this three-dimensional energetic grid.
Yeah.
Which is Mother Nature.
Yeah.
And Mother Nature's here and it's just air, and then it's a hand, and then it's air, and then it's a hand. Like Mother Nature's completely able to modify itself and morph into whatever, it is. Air, window, roof, hand.
Yeah.
So our mind creates this body out of this energetic field.
Agree.
Now, that mind, the always was awareness, beyond the physical, can be aware of the physical.
Yes.
The physical, which is made up of the mother, can be aware of the mind. The combination of this physical representation of this mind, which is really feminine, it's made up of the mother, right? It can feel the mind feeling it. It can be felt. It can be the felt. So being felt, being like, it's like a kid, when you give a kid attention and you look at them doing something, when you recognize something that's amazing, like when you're in that mindset of truly experiencing the physicality and what it's made of, you're in awe.
Yeah.
And when
in presence, and when you're right there and you're like everything,
you're right there, and the stuff that is this physical representation of your mind that's made of matter, when it is felt in that way of such deep appreciation and awe, it has an experience that you can also, because it's your physicality that you can feel. It's like the physical aspect of yourself, which is merged with this mother. You get to experience that combination, how it feels in response to that, because it's you, it's your physicality, it's your physical body. And the two of them, follow each other, it's a beautiful thing. If you can get it, it's super, it's every day, it's all the time. It's completely normal.
Similar to like my guides talk about being a divine human, where like we're aware of our humanness, but we're also aware of our divinity and kind of that integration of those.
Well, I mean, if the mother is divine, everything that is divine that we experience occurs in the mother, in this physical realm. So the divinity has to be there in the mother. Our perspective of it changes, but when you're in the perspective of being able to be open to the divine, you experience the mother as divine. When you feel yourself made of the mother, every single atom being completely formless, made of matter, mother, transforming into what your mind's representation of your physicality is, that's a divine experience. It's a magical experience. To have a non-physical consciousness dipped like ink into water, into this three-dimensional, completely formless realm that can be anything. And then it creates this physicality. And then this non-physical mind can experience this physicality, and this physicality can experience the non-physical mind experiencing it.
It's so fun, isn't it, what we signed up for?
But it's like so amazing, and it's so ordinary. And then we spend our time on our phone looking at shit.
That's right. The scroll hole, which hopefully in the work you're doing, the work I'm doing, we can help people, to bring
that's what
back
I'm trying
more.
to do now. After this weekend of just like being out of harmony with myself, I was like, okay, I got to find some way of just bringing that harmony with this feminine matter more into my regular practice, because so much of it is because the representation of my divine feminine is this beautiful partner, Marta, that I have. And so I'm in that glow of that all the time. I forget that actually
it's already within you.
It's already within me. And that's the reason I've been able to attract such a beautiful partner. And then
but it's only ever within ourselves anyway. Like everything that you see in her, it's because it lights up within your board, like your motherboard kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's
but it also, it's like, it's important not just to project that onto her and to experience that in myself and let her be her.
Yeah. Well, I have placed quite a lot of burden on her, because I did say to her, I love you so much, Marta. And like, if you ever think about breaking up with my brother, like, please give me the right of reply. Just let me argue his case.
Yeah. Which, then I got to do for you with your partner. You put your finger in, and then you're going to have to cop it back the other way.
Relationships, man.
Yeah.
That's a tricky business. Tricky business. Well, I love you, Paul. I love the wisdom. I love you exploring all the stuff you've done, the fact that you're so open with it all. And, one day I'll have to have my psychedelic journey with you. I'm not sure when I'll be ready for that.
You and Mum.
Mum together. Okay. If she does it, I'll definitely do it.
Oh, it's easy. Just chocolate and mushrooms would be simple for you. You just love chocolate. It'd just be simple. Easy.
I do. Well, there was that time. We won't even necessarily have time for that, where I did have that mull cookie in Byron, and it was just...
God, you were hysterical.
I was talking about it on Saturday night, where Renata was reading the TV guide, and I was looking at her. I'm like, how can you read that? Like,
and then you crashed out and went to sleep when we went out to a party, and we came back, and you had woken up and eaten everything in the house.
I remember I was eating biscuits, and the biscuits were like doing infinity symbol in my mouth, and they were just like moving around. I could feel every little piece.
One and only time Alicia got stoned. Hysterical.
Oh my God. Well, I got stoned recently on a lymphatic drainage massage. I was stoned for 2 days from that. That was crazy. Anyway, I probably haven't even told you about that.
No.
I love you. I'm so glad we decided
you,
to journey together in our human forms.
Totally.
I know we've got such a special bond, and I know that we've lived countless lives together, and it will continue. And it's so cool to know that, our love will never die.
Never. It's just so great, Leach, to have so much support from you and understanding. Like, we're a bit different from the rest of the family. I think if we didn't have each other, as wonderful as Mum is, like, there's limits.
Well, and Mum's so good about things like, we're a bit way out in some of our things, but also Mum will say, I'm a 77-year-old, however old she was at the time, I'm a 77-year-old woman as well. So, don't necessarily place too much on what my view is on this or that. Like, she's so beautiful. She's so beautiful. Well, we love you all, family, Dad, Mum,
and
DJ.
Leach, just before we go, let's just have a little moment of just a little prayer for H, hey?
I love that, because it's really been on my heart, H, and
I can't believe she didn't have a cup of tea for, what was it, 47 days? I was like,
our Auntie H.
How bad is it if you can't even sip a cup of tea?
Yeah, she's really been going through tremendous thing, and family efforts, aunties and uncles up there and helping. And so, we just, all of our love and blessings and prayers for Auntie H, my godmum, and just on the journey that she's in, which she's on right now, which has really been massive for her. And we bring all of our love and care and calling forth all that is able to be provided to assist her on this journey of healing for her highest and her best. And anything you wanted to add, Paulie?
Love you, H.
Love you, darling H. Not sure she was probably not listening to this at any point, but
I was going to ask you to get Oriella to sing, Leash, but I don't know.
Oh God, I don't think I'm ready for that. There only was one. There was only one.
Oriella wants to shine. She loves to sing all the time. If you just give her a moment, she's gonna burst out and dance and sing.
One day, but maybe not yet. There was only one story that we missed, which was when we were in Bali together, and we went to see Radu Bagus, who's that energy healer guy that my shaking meditation kind of precipitated my channeling. And I remember when you were doing your energy work or whatever it was, and there was a lot of people in the room, and I remember he came up right behind you, and he was just standing there, and I don't know what he was observing, but there was something that he could see that you were doing with your energy, or that was happening with your energy.
And he came to try and blow me over, because he does this thing where he go up to people and he went, and people go spinning around the room. And
did he do that?
Yeah, and he came to move me.
And you didn't move.
I'm like, go for it. And then he was like, I just get bouncy. I'm like, yeah, okay, good. And he's like, and I'm like, yeah. He's like, come up the front.
Oh, just that's right.
Stare at this picture of me. Remember, he had all these statues of himself and these pictures of, oh my God, it's hysterical. Yeah. I know people that knew him before he was a guru. Okay, so it's like, you know, I wasn't enamored, but I'm so appreciative that his shaking meditation helps people. Yeah. And it helped you, you know, bust out and, you know, start the journey would have started, but like at some point, that day of shaking certain, because I remember you ringing me, you know, before you had the full opening, and you were like, I can't stop shaking, I'm in the shower and my leg keeps shaking. I'm like, yeah, it's good, that's good, just let it go, that's good.
Holy shit, unreal.
Welcome to being a weirdo.
Let's see where this weirdo journey takes us. Hey, we'll just keep going and unfolding, and I don't know. I just go day by day into the unknown knowingly.
Love you, Leash.
I love you too, Paulie. Thank you, my
darling.
love. So grateful to you for listening. I'd love you to share this. If you got value, rate and review my podcast so I can reach more humans. For loads of free resources, go to aliciatemmerman.com, and that'll take you to my offerings in spaces I play in, my spiritual wellness business, retreats, one-on-ones and other things. Also, I love working with couples, so check out the Marriage Hub. Finally, I have been an employment lawyer for over 20 years now, and I work in workplace mediation, conflict resolution, and mediation in other areas too. Dumais, D-U-M-A-I-S, Workplace Services is where you'll find all that info. I love you. Take good care of you.